A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sisters, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple there whom he loved, he said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And from that hour the disciple took her into his home. The Gospel of the Lord. Most of us, I'm sure, know someone who is suffering from cancer or some chronic medical condition. Perhaps we've been praying for them for a while now. I think the challenge for us as Christians is to try to find God's fingerprints in their suffering. We have to discover, where is grace in all of this? I believe the grace of suffering is often found in vulnerability. Some people I've met in the hospital, for example, they once held positions of power at their jobs. They were office managers, some were CEOs, some were in positions of power. And yet, here they are in the hospital, wearing the same hospital gowns as everyone else. Illness has a way of bringing us down to a level plane, to where humanity meets its fragility, causing us to pause and consider powers greater than our own. At times like this, when we see suffering or we're suffering, we seek God in unexpected ways, hoping to find answers. In these times of struggle, we yearn to depend on a God who sometimes, especially when we're suffering, seems to have betrayed us. What I really want to enforce or to help you to recognize is God can and does make use of our suffering. He brings people together through our suffering. He touches lives and helps to advance the kingdom. I can't tell you how many families I've seen who have visited their loved ones in the hospital that are suffering. And during that period of suffering, suddenly old grievances are reconciled, because in light of what they're going through, grudges seem foolish in the face of their fragility. I've seen the faith of many patients strengthened. A few even rediscovered their desire for God, something they had lost years before. I remember one young lady who had advanced multiple sclerosis, and she could no longer feed herself or brush her teeth. And whenever I visited, she would proclaim, "God is so good." When I asked her why she felt this way, despite having a disease that prevented her from holding a job or caring for herself, she said she had nothing to complain about. She had a happy life, a loving family, and a strong faith in God. While suffering characteristically gives rise to confusion and uncertainty and hopelessness, it can also shake us out of our pride. Failure has sent more than one proud person reeling, broken, into the arms of God. God depends on us to allow ourselves to be shaken to the bone and broken so that we can be rebuilt. One patient told me how his sudden illness brought him and his family back to the church and restored their faith in a God who desires the best for them. Still, despite these somewhat sudden conversions, we are all still left with the inevitable question, why? Why me? Why anyone? God's blessings don't negate the fact that we go through pain. The most difficult hurdle for me as a priest is to accept that I have no answer to such questions. All I can do is place suffering and sorrow in its context. Even though I know so little about most patients' pain, I believe and I recognize that Jesus knows their pain completely. And what tells me this? If Christ could suffer humiliation, hatred, and physical pain, then we can sit beneath the cross and suffer with him. Now, it's not easy. Consider Jesus' mother Mary. Consider the pain she felt at the foot of the cross as her son, the man of sorrows, died and the life drained from him. A spiritual writer completes this image. He says, quietly she waited until, with the first pink light of Easter's dawn, Jesus stood before his mother, radiant, triumphant, and holding out his arms to her embrace. And this is the promise of God, joy and redemption. Sorrow was for Mary in every instance the prelude to a deeper happiness. So like Mary, we must ponder and question in order to seek and to find the deeper truth. For some reason, suffering is a path we are sometimes asked to take, and when our humanity meets its fragility, the Lord depends on us to be vulnerable and broken so that we may become empty enough to be filled with grace.